For decades, the core job of desktop publishing has remained stubbornly fixed. You combine text and images on a rigid Cartesian plane, locking every element into a precise physical location. Look at this flowchart. It represents the baseline architecture of the traditional publishing pipeline. It operates strictly linearly. Copy is written, it moves to layout, then review, and finally export. This linear model has a glaring structural vulnerability. It relies entirely on a single point of failure, the designer's manual pixel-by-pixel adjustments to make everything fit. That architecture worked when print was the final destination. Today, copy is updated continuously across multiple digital channels, and strict accessibility mandates are required by law. The environmental variables have accelerated. As we add diverging multi-format outputs to our diagram, you can see how rapid iteration cycles stress the architecture, sending cyclical copy injection arrows repeatedly hitting the layout node. When a legal team demands 2 more lines of text at the 11th hour, or marketing swaps a photo across 6 languages, a static layout system cannot adapt. The math no longer works, and the structure fractures. Instantly, red warning icons flash across the timeline: overset text, broken grids, missing alt text. The entire flow of production halts completely. To survive this continuous iteration, Adobe InDesign is re-architecting itself. It is shifting from a rigid, static canvas into a dynamic workspace powered by AI. This shift operates within strict operational boundaries. AI is not a creative entity capable of aesthetic design. It functions strictly as a constraint-based production assistant, built to stabilize these failing systems. Mastering this new system architecture determines whether your production workflow can scale, or if you will spend your days fighting continuous cascade failures. The first major point of production friction occurs the moment an editor makes a late-stage change inside a locked grid structure. Every text frame in InDesign relies on bounding box constraints. If you inject a 90-word paragraph into a space mathematically designed for 60 words, the physical dimensions of the frame are breached. Look at this precise wireframe of a 2-page magazine spread. When an injected paragraph hits this specific column, the text box immediately glows red and visually overflows its bottom boundary. The traditional triage for this mechanical failure is entirely manual. You either shrink the tracking, compromise the whitespace, or halt the timeline completely to send the copy back to the editor. The AI rewrite tool bypasses manual triage entirely, acting as a computational copy workshop right on the canvas. While the overset text box remains highlighted, a side panel expands, generating 3 distinct shortened text variants calculated to perfectly align with the exact pixel dimensions. It reduces the word count instantly, maintaining the exact column constraints and preserving the core narrative meaning of the editor's original notes. But a human must resolve it. The designer selects a variant. The red warning disappears, the overflow recedes, and the bounding box constraint is resolved. Resolving these copy constraints locally and immediately prevents a minor edit from destroying the typographic pacing of the entire publication. The second major point of friction involves digital accessibility and semantic structuring. Traditionally, reading order and alt text are treated as afterthoughts, pushed to the very end of the production timeline. You can see the result on this project timeline. A massive, congested bottleneck node labeled Accessibility Compliance emerges right before the final export. Delaying placement to this stage guarantees failure. Teams are under extreme time pressure, resulting in forgotten images, vague descriptions, and missed contextual intent. The architectural shift here physically moves the generation of accessibility data to the exact moment an asset is placed on the canvas. Watch as the massive bottleneck dissolves. Small accessibility tasks are redistributed evenly, attaching themselves continuously throughout the earlier layout development phase. The AI acts as a first-pass agent. The second an image is imported, it drafts baseline structural tags and proposes alt text. However, there is a sharp divide between the AI's literal visual description capability and the required human editorial intent. Look at the split screen. On the left side, the AI generates generic alt text, like person holding paper. On the right, the designer refines it to reflect the actual intent. Lead architect presenting final blueprint to stakeholders. Integrating proactive AI compliance early maintains rigorous standards for accessible design, while entirely eliminating the final export scramble. This brings us to the most complex mechanical failure in desktop publishing, the grid cascade. The trigger scenario is common. You swap a single, slightly larger asset, a wider headshot, or a new sponsor logo, into a densely packed traditional layout. When that slightly oversized block is forced into the center of a tightly packed wall of rigid structural blocks, the entire system fractures and misaligns violently. This single asset swap forces the production artist to manually nudge, resize, and realign dozens of surrounding text frames just to restore spatial harmony. The systemic solution to grid instability is flex layout and content-driven adaptive logic. Look at this wireframe of a trifold brochure. A new, significantly wider visual asset is dropped directly into the center column. Instantly, the AI enforces logic parameters, anchoring captions to the new asset, enforcing mathematical margin and padding rules globally, and recalculating grid rhythms dynamically to prevent overlaps. The system absorbs the shock. The surrounding wireframe boxes shift and resize fluidly, absorbing the wider asset without breaking the column alignment or triggering a cascade failure. Adaptive layouts decouple content updates from manual structural repair, allowing complex design systems to scale at the speed of modern marketing. When you combine AI constraint resolution, proactive accessibility, and adaptive grids, the modern publishing environment operates entirely differently. Notice how that original broken linear flowchart transforms into a fluid, non-linear iterative loop. It pulses smoothly, completely free of red warning errors, which addresses the lingering professional anxiety. Mathematically, AI lacks the capacity for aesthetic judgment. Establishing brand voice, engineering narrative pacing, and controlling the emotional rhythm of whitespace require human curiosity and experience. They defy automation. The AI is strictly an engine for generating options and resolving spatial friction. Ultimate creative authority remains firmly with the human. The final result of this shift is role elevation. Look at this spectrum of professional value. On the left side is the manual production operator. On the right side is the creative decision maker. The old daily grind trapped designers on the left, manually nudging text boxes, chasing missing fonts, and repairing broken grids. As those mechanical tasks are automated, the workflow shifts. The indicator slider moves sharply away from manual execution and locks firmly onto the creative side. This demands a new focus on directing systemic hierarchy, refining typography, and applying rigorous editorial polish. InDesign AI will not design the layout for you. It automates the mechanical friction, freeing you to finally focus on the design decisions that actually demand a human mind.